Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live video. And I am just going to show you a quick card today that I made with the In the Pines stamp set bundle. And I also used one of the other host exclusive stamp sets that is called A Merry Hello. So this is the card we're going to be making today. And it features some of the Designer Series paper, the Poinsettia Place Designer Series paper. That's what all the background papers are, and we'll talk about those in just a second. But this is the card. So thanks so much if you're hopping on and joining me today. Feel free to say hello and let me know that you're here. Hey, Bree, glad you're joining me today. And, again, we're just going to run through, do a quick card. Hey, Debbie, glad you're here as well. So this is the stamp set that I used. It's called In the Pines. It's from the 2020 August to December mini catalog, and it's got some really good pine tree images in it, a couple of good sentiments in it. It can be used kind of, hey, Karen, glad you're sneaking in from work. Hey, Chi, glad you're here as well. So it's got some good sentiments in it and can be used for a little more general, not necessarily just Christmas. Of course, I made a Christmas card with it today, but I think it can be used for a lot of different things. So I love this stamp set, and I really hope it carries forward. So, hey, Julie and Trudy, I'm glad you're here as well. So these are the Pinewood dies, and they coordinate with the In the Pines stamp set. They're bundled together in the catalog, and you save 10% if you order them together in the bundle. You can also order them individually if you don't necessarily want both pieces, but you definitely want both pieces. At least that's my opinion. So, hey, Lori, glad you're here as well. All right, so that is the die set we're going to be using today. And then the other stamp set that I used for the sentiments on this one actually is the A Merry Hello stamp set. And this is one of the host exclusive sets from, well, it's actually the only host exclusive set from the mini catalog. And it's one of those that I kind of overlooked initially, but it's definitely a good one. It's got some good sentiments in it. It's got cute little stockings. And if you want to remember the year 2020, we have that as an option. It's actually in the stamp set. So there you go. You can always make a 2020 card, or, it's time to leave 2020 card or something like that. So you definitely can have some fun using that one. But this is a really cute stamp set. Love that it's the two-step stamping, so you can add the little pieces, the little polka dots go on here, and this one's the solid, and then here's the plaid. So definitely a cute stamp set. So hey, Barbara and Jerry, I'm glad you're here. And again, this is two-step stamping for these. So cute little stamp set. Again, it's one of the host exclusives in the mini catalog. A couple other things that I'm using is the Tasteful Labels dies, and I use this one. I don't even know how to describe it. It's sort of rectangular, sort of ovally, sort of between the two, but it's the larger one, and I use that on the background here behind the tree. And then I used this one, which is the hexagon die, or one of the hexagon, well, I guess it is the only hexagon die in here, for the sentiment. So pretty simple on that one as well. And then one other set of dies that I used, of course, stitched rectangles, because I can't not use them. I actually used this die, which is it's the biggest of the narrow rectangles, if that makes sense. And I cut the piece of Designer Series paper with it, and you can see that it's obviously not long enough. But because it's hidden nicely behind my tree die cut, I just cut it out with this, chopped the piece of designer paper in half, slid it apart, and nobody can tell because it's sort of spread apart on the card. And so definitely some of the little tricks of paper crafting that you can use as you're making your cards. All right, one thing before we get going, I just wanted to remind you, speaking of Designer Series paper, Stampin' Up! Has got their 15% off Designer Series paper sale going on. It's 15% off 15 select packs of paper, and it is a mix of papers between the annual catalog and holiday catalog. So it's all of the papers here: the Artistry Blooms, 'Tis the Season, Forever Greenery, Poinsettia Place, which is the one that we're using today, Trimming the Town, Plaid Tidings, Toile Tidings, Peony Garden, Whale of a Time, Heartwarming Hugs, Magic in This Night, Snowflake Splendor, In Good Taste, Playing with Patterns, and Playful Pets. So those are all the papers that are on sale for 15% off during the month of October. So make sure you're getting stocked up, especially for the holidays. I mean, I love that they put holiday papers on the sale too. So it's always a nice little bonus. So let's get started on the card. Thank you, Trudy. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, I hide lots of things behind die cuts. I probably shouldn't tell all my secrets to you, but lots of things get hidden behind die cuts when I'm making cards. All right, so I have got a soft suede card base, and I cut this one to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored it at 5 1/2. But again, this same design will also work with your regular book fold cards, which would be a 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 scored at 4 1/4. So however you prefer to make your card bases, this card will work with either one, and the measurements will be exactly the same on it. So I have a piece of the Poinsettia Place Designer Series paper. And I know it's almost, I get kind of sad when I glue pieces like that down because I'm like, it's so pretty, but I don't want that side on my card front. So, and this is cut to, at least it should be cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And all the cardstock cuts and details will be posted on my blog tomorrow. And I will share that blog post in this video once the post is live. So no need to worry about writing measurements down. They'll all be on the blog tomorrow. So get that glued down here with a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue. And again, just that I usually use that glue when I'm gluing things that cover the entire card front, where I want to make sure I've got it straight and even before everything is stuck down forever. Then I've got another piece of the Poinsettia Place Designer Series paper and a piece of garden green cardstock. This is cut to 3 1/2 by 4 1/4, so it's going to cover the entire card front. And this is cut to 3 5/8 by 4 1/4. And I'm just going to use a little Stampin' Seal to adhere the two pieces together. And then we're going to use that same Stampin' Seal. I'll learn how to talk one of these days, and we're just going to adhere it to the card front. So I'm adhering this, hopefully, if I can get it on here straight, so that it's fairly even top to bottom and that it's even with the edges, so it should be the same size across. So, all right. Hopefully y'all are having a good Tuesday. It's another beautiful fall day here. Well, we got a little rain today in New Jersey, but otherwise it's not, you know, the temperatures aren't too cold yet, so I can't complain too much about it. All right, I'm adhering this to the card front, and again, hopefully you can tell I've kind of lined it up on my grid paper, so this is my way to make sure that I'm getting it fairly even top to bottom. So I just count my grid spaces here, and hopefully I've got it pretty close to where I want it to be. And then I'm just going to adhere it down to the card front. Again, I use Stampin' Seal on that. So, all right. And then I've got my piece of Poinsettia Place Designer Series paper that I had pre-cut with, again, it's the biggest of the narrow rectangles that I cut it with. And then I'm just going to take it and chop it in two because I need it to be a little bit wider on my card front. I'm going to use a little Stampin' Seal. Oops, I grabbed the wrong one. Hey, Kay, thanks for hopping in and thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. So I'm going to use a little Stampin' Seal, and we are going to adhere this to the card front. And I want to get it up fairly close to the top, like that. And then a little bit more Stampin' Seal on the bottom. And again, get it down fairly close to the bottom. And if you really want to make sure that you're like super, super straight, although this one, they're far enough apart that it doesn't really matter, you can take a piece of paper, line it up along both edges before you officially stick it down. But like I said, on this one, they're far enough apart that if you're a hair off, I don't think anybody's going to notice. All right, next up, we're going to do a little bit of stamping finally. Again, I cut this ahead of time with one of the Tasteful Labels dies. I want to call them the wrong name. I want to call them Tasteful Textures, and I know that's not the right name. But every time I have to stop myself. But I've got one of the Tasteful Labels dies that I went ahead and die cut a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I have got Pool Party ink, and I'm just going to use the little snowflake, well, I think it's snowflake, snowfall image from the In the Pines stamp set, and I'm just stamping it all over along the edges of this piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm also going to stamp it kind of down here near the bottom because the tree is only going to cover the center part. It's got the little trunk that sticks down on the bottom, so you want to make sure you stamp around the bottom as well. And then next up, I've got some crumb cake ink that I'm going to use, and I'm going to ink up. This is what I think is supposed to be the ground. That's what I'm calling it. I'm sure it's supposed to be snow, but I'm calling it ground because I don't know. I thought about stamping it in Pool Party, but I was afraid it'd get to be like too much Pool Party. So I did crumb cake instead. I inked it, stamped it on scrap paper, and then stamped it here on the little piece of Whisper White cardstock that I've already got cut here. I'm going to close that up and set this aside. And then next up, we are going to start stamping the tree. So again, this is the outline tree from the one that looks like the Christmas tree to me. Again, I know it's a pine tree, but to me it looks more like a Christmas tree. And we're going to stamp that in garden green ink. And just inking it up well here, making sure that we're pretty well covered, and going to stamp it on Whisper White cardstock. All right, let me set that aside so that I hopefully don't make a big mess. And again here, got garden green ink, and this is the kind of fill-in image for this pine tree. So I've inked it in garden green ink, I stamped it on scrap paper, and then I'm going to come back over my main image. Whoops, hopefully I'm on screen still. And stamp it over the top. And again, this is one of those images that's sort of artsy looking, so it doesn't have to be perfectly stamped, which I love that about it. So if it gets a little crookedy and crazy, it's all okay. Back in with crumb cake ink. Hey, Lori, glad you're here from Georgia as well. So, oh, and your grandbaby was born. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sure that you are having lots of fun. Is it a girl or a boy? I don't know if I asked you that earlier or not, but congratulations. That's always good news. So, got the little stem image, stem trunk, I guess it is, image for the pine tree, and I stamped that in crumb cake ink. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut with the pine wood dies. And just going to take this over. My die cutting machine is off to the side here, so I'm just going to line it up and run it through the die cutting machine quickly. Of course, it's taking me a second. Thank you, Ruby. I appreciate that. Glad that you're liking the card. All right, and I moved my die cutting machine off to the side so that I don't wiggle and jiggle the table too much as I'm die cutting, because I know that can make you kind of like, blah. So, all right, so I've got the pine tree here die cut, and I'm just going to take some Stampin' Dimensionals. Oh, it's a boy. Congratulations. I'm sure it's very exciting for your whole family. So lots of fun ahead too. Hopefully everybody's getting some sleep. I remember the early days, and yes, it's, newborn babies are nice, but gosh, it's exhausting. And I think back and I'm like, woof, I don't think I could do it anymore. I'm too old. So, all right, so let me go ahead and adhere this on with a couple Stampin' Dimensionals. Just adhering it onto the die cut. And then I'm going to take some Stampin' Seal, and I'm going to put a little bit on the back of this die cut. And I'm putting it on the top and the bottom. I don't know if you noticed that I did some of the kind of up towards the top and up towards, or down towards the bottom, because there's a little gap of paper in here. I don't necessarily want to stick it on in the middle and then it will kind of sink down in the middle. So since I didn't want that look, I just wanted to go ahead and put it at the top and the bottom and adhere it over the little opening in the paper here. So again, like I said, nobody can see it. It's all good, all covered. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the red rhinestone basic jewels. And I kind of got probably a little carried away on these. I think I put 11 or 12 of them, something like that, on the tree. So I'll try to get it done fairly quickly. But they're so pretty, and I started adding them, and I'm like, oh, but it needs a few more. Yep, and it needs a few more, and yep, I think a few more here. So it's one of those things. It's sort of like decorating your own tree when you're putting it up for Christmas. That you're, oh, we put an ornament here, and then we put one there, and then we put one there, then we got to put one here, and so one of those things where once you start decorating, you kind of have to make sure you get it all covered. So, all right, whoop. I thought I had that one stuck down and ended up just sticking to the paper. I think one more should do it. There we go. Okay. I didn't count. I just stuck them on this time. So like I said, I think I counted 11 on this one, but I don't know how many I put on that one. All right. Next up, we're going to do, actually, we're going to adhere a little bit of ribbon underneath where the sentiment's going to go. And this is from the All the Trimmings ribbon combo pack. And this, again, is from the mini catalog. It's got garden green and poppy parade ribbon in it. It's got a beautiful little, hopefully you can see a little bit of, I think it's gold edging or copper, one of the two. But it's got a little bit of metallic edging on it, which is really pretty. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Stampin' Seal, and I'm going to put it on the card front. And then I'm going to take my ribbon, and I'm just going to put it in a Z form, or a Z, well, form the letter Z basically on over the card front. And I'm not cutting my ribbon first. I usually, when I'm doing this kind of an embellishment, I usually wait and cut the ribbon after the fact, because every single time, even if I measured it from this card to this card, I'd end up with it not right. So usually I find it works best to leave it on the spool until I actually adhere it to the card, and then I can, then it's always the perfect size and I don't have to worry about pulling and tugging and all that sort of thing. All right. Well, thank you, Beth. I didn't even see you hop in here. Glad you're here. And thanks, Sherry. I appreciate you being here as well. So the sentiment, again, is from the Merry Hello, which is a host exclusive stamp set. I'm going to stamp that in Poppy Parade ink. And the host exclusives, if you're not familiar with that, with how Stampin' Up! Does those, you need to have an order of $150 or greater, and then you can start redeeming host rewards. And they have some stamp sets like this one that you can only get with your host rewards. So it's a great little deal where you can get them, and the host rewards are basically free stuff that you get from Stampin' Up! By placing a larger order or by doing a workshop or hosting a party or something like that. You can earn them that way as well. So if you have questions about the host rewards and how you get those or how you earn those or how you can redeem them, just let me know and I'm happy to answer that. So, hey Akiko, glad you're here, and Nancy and Jean Ann, I see y'all are hopping in as well, so thanks for joining today. Again, I use Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of this, and I'm just going to adhere the die cut next to the little tree. And again, this die cut was from Whisper White cardstock with one of the Tasteful Labels dies. So I'd cut that ahead of time because it was a photopolymer stamp, so I could definitely see through it and see where I was stamping pretty well. Sometimes I don't see as well as I think I do. So, all right, for the inside of the card, I kept it fairly simple as well. And I've got one of the sentiments from the A Merry Hello stamp set. And I'm, again, using a little bit of Poppy Parade ink, just inking it up. And I'm going to stamp it here. Again, I'm trying to line things up on my grid paper so that I get it hopefully fairly straight. And close up this ink pad before I end up with red everywhere, because I know I will. And then I'm going to pull out garden green ink, and we're going to stamp. This is the little row of trees from the In the Pines stamp set, and I'm going to stamp the outline image in full strength garden green ink underneath the sentiment. And then this is the little fill-in image like we had on the card front, where I'm just going to ink that up in garden green ink, stamp it on scrap paper, and then line it up over the trees fairly close and stamp it so that it kind of fills in a little bit but isn't too dark. All right, so let me get a little Stampin' Seal, and I will adhere this to the inside of the card, hopefully. And then we will be all done with the card making for today. And I better close up this ink pad because I know that my elbow will be in that in no time. All right, so let's put this on the inside and close up the card, and we will be all done for today. So, all right, let me do a quick crease at the bone folder, and we are good to go. So, all right, so this is my earlier card that I made earlier. This is the one we made in the video today. So I appreciate you all being here. Thanks so much for joining. Hopefully you like the card, and hopefully you'll consider getting both of the stamp sets. I love them both. Love them both. The In the Pines could stay around forever as far as I'm concerned. So thanks so much for joining me today. I will plan to be back on my YouTube channel live on Friday around 2 o'clock Eastern time, and then back here again on Facebook Live around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Tuesday. So thanks so much for joining, and we will chat with you all soon.